Welcome, guys, back to the I Love Wrestling podcast. I'm your host, as always, Justin Woolwine. Today, we are welcomed with Izzy Moreno.
Yes, you got it. Yes. Hi,
Nah,
thank you so much for having me. It also broke up too. So I was like nervous. I was like, wait. I was like, he got it. He got it. Great to see you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be doing this. But yeah, thank you for having me.
of course. Before we get into your career and maybe your wrestling fandom, um, would you like to shout out like your social medias and maybe upcoming events you got coming up in April?
Me on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Across the board, it's Izzy Mania. And then as far as shows, my next ones that are already announced are for Mania Week, which is so crazy because and I am like so excited but also so terrified. But I have I believe it's April 18th at 10:30 in the morning. I'm going to be facing Nina Samuels, and then at 1:30 I'm going to be taking on WWE ID superstar Zeta Steel. And then also I'm going to be appearing at WrestleCon Thursday, so you can come and meet me in Vegas. Both of my shows are also at the FSW Arena, and then there should be one more match being announced. I can't say anything, but there should be a couple more announcements where you can see me throughout Vegas weekend.
Okay. Here at the I Love Wrestling podcast, we try to start at the very beginning, not only of your career, but of your fandom. When did you find professional wrestling and maybe
Okay.
what made you fall in love with
Yep. Yeah, so I actually got into it when I was like 3, 4 years old. My parents actually introduced it to me. They just randomly put it on one night and I was like, "What is this?" And they were like, "Well, this is wrestling." And they were like, "If you're gonna watch this, you can't do it at school." I was like, "Okay." And so by the way, I never tried anything in school, but I was so hooked on right away. I don't know, I was just like, because honestly, like growing up, I wasn't a big TV kid. And I was telling my friend this like yesterday. I was like, he was like, "Well, what type of shows did you watch as a kid?" And I was like, honestly, it was just wrestling. And so literally, like all I watched was wrestling. Like after my parents put it on, it was wrestling. Raw, SmackDown, everything else in between, just wrestling.
Okay. Do you remember your first like live event?
My first live event, I'm trying to think. I don't. Yeah, I don't have like it was probably either like FCW, so that was like NX before NXT. I used to go to those a lot and it was super close to my house too, which was pretty dope. And then I remember like eventually I think I went to like a couple like Raw or SmackDowns when it was in Florida. I think the closest it was in like Tampa. And then I'm trying to think. And then yeah, I went to NXT at Full Sail like once, and then after that was kind of the rest was history, if you know what I know.
Well, with that said, tell us a little bit about Izzy Mania and maybe when it was born.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, okay. Now I feel like I'm gonna get canceled for this. So so long story short, I was not going to NXT TakeOver Brooklyn to see Bayley win the title. It was on the table, but like tickets were so expensive. And I think my parents only found 2 tickets, and I was like, no, if we're going, we all have to go. And so they're like, okay. And so they made it up to me by bringing me to a Hulk Hogan meet and greet. And so I met him, and I was like, Izzy. He was like, oh yeah, Izzy Mania, brother. And I was like, yeah, I was like, Izzy Mania. And so it just stuck. And listen, I know, in hindsight, but also Bailey also had, I think when I made my social media, Bailey's like Instagram handle or Twitter handle was like, it's Bayley Mania. It was like something like that. So I don't know, and it's still, I've used it ever since, and people use it in my comments because like they get like the full like Izzy Moreno lore, like it's like the full package. But yeah, that's how Izzy Mania started. So I'm sorry.
how did it feel for you, like as a little kid, to be so heavily involved with like the WWE stars, especially like you mentioned Bayley, Sasha Banks? Like, how was it to be not in the fold, but
Mhm.
close to being in the fold?
Yeah, it was really awesome because like I just, I was like 8, 10 at the time. So I was like, I look at these people like they're freaking superheroes. Like, kind of be a part of like the Bayley and Sasha story really awesome. I don't think like at the time like I fully grasped it because I was, my brain was still developing. But like I think for me, like looking back, I'm like, wow, I played like a really small part in like such a historic match, and that's something I'll forever be grateful for. But all getting to meet my favorite wrestlers, like when I met Ronda Rousey in Orlando, and this was when I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I said to her, I was like, listen, I was like, Ronda, I do your armbar all the time in class. And she's like, well, now it's your armbar. That day, we'll never forget. And that's how I actually got my finisher in professional wrestling. It's the Izzy bar. But yeah, no, it's like it always meant a lot to me to be able to like meet my favorite wrestlers, get to interact with them. And then it just also gave me I want to be with my fans one day because I've had some really, really good experiences, especially as like a little kid, meeting my favorite wrestlers. Um, so I think that was like a really cool like learning a way to learn of like how to interact with fans. So I'm like, okay, I'm like I really like this experience, make it 10 times better for like my fans one day. So I try my best to do that.
Um, recently the online yourself and Mercedes Monet have thrown some jabs back and forth, kind of referencing that takeover match between her and Bayley. Do you think we could get to see you and Mercedes Monet maybe somewhere on the independent scene?
Hmm. Oh, listen, if Tony Khan wants to book it, I'm listen, I'll be all elite. Like I know some fans, they want to see me be all elite, especially since I'm turning 18 soon, so you never know. But I've seen she's doing some indie shows, so if somebody wants to book me against her, listen, that would be like the match of the century. This is like years in the making, okay, everybody? Um, no, but it was so funny. Like I got so many texts when she like responded to me and I was like, "Oh my gosh." I was like, "That's so funny." Um and I was just going back and forth like honestly like everybody was like, are you like actually like beefing with her?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, no." I'm like, I have the utmost respect for Mercedes. Like she's such a pioneer and like everything she's been able to do just for women's wrestling. I'm like I hope like one day it can be like a fraction of that. And just for her to like remember our history is so funny. But yeah, no, it was really awesome to interact with her, especially since you never know what it can lead down to. Like I said, I turn 18 in May. I could become always Monet versus Izzy Moreno. Years in the making.
Um, you know, One thing that interested like me as a podcaster, and like I started my podcast on YouTube. Your YouTube channel, excuse me, your YouTube channel
Hmm.
is quite something. Has all the podcasts,
Yeah.
interviews, your reviews. What made you decide to jump into the YouTube landscape?
Yeah, so my YouTube was always like all over the place because when like I first started, I was pretty young. I think I was like maybe 12, 13. Of like me going to shows and stuff. And I remember I did like I think my first video was like tips on how to meet your favorite wrestlers before like a SmackDown show. And like I can't even watch that video. But also I like after that, like a few years into that, I actually started a show called The Hot Tag with Izzy. So I would like preview shows, so like AEW and NXT. Then I'd also have the opportunity to interview wrestlers. Um, and honestly, like as much as I loved like being on camera and like the whole broadcasting side to it, honestly, the only reason why I started that is so I can get comfortable. And eventually, like I knew I'd have to start doing promos. Like, I was like, I want my promo to game to be so good. And honestly, it's helped me so much. I'm so comfortable in front of a camera, and I'm just so grateful for like those years that I did have the hot tag because really it set me up like so well. It was so like planned well. But yeah, no, and so like I always whenever I do a promo, I literally think about like my hot tag days, and I'm like, gosh, I'm like if and I remember like sometimes I'd hate it, and I would be like, I don't really want to film today, but in hindsight, like I'm gonna be honest, like my promos, I'm so proud of them, and it's like really good promo. I'm like this is for you, hot tag. But yeah, no, literally, like the only reason why I started broadcasting was because I can get good at promos and comfortable in front of a camera. But yeah, those were some good memories.
Do you have a favorite hot tag?
A favorite hot tag? Crap, I haven't been asked that forever. Because since I would be like when I was actively doing the hot tag, I'm gonna be honest, I really don't remember some of the interviews I've done.
That
I
happens.
remember, okay, I remember like one of the coolest ones I ever did was with Scott Hall. It was remember it was um when was that? Oh, it was when NXT was going live on the USA Network for the first time, and I think they were like competing with AEW, and I was like standing by, like I was at full stand, I was just like standing around, and this car like just randomly pulled up next to me, parking lot, and here comes Scott Hall. He gets out of the car, and I'm like, hey, can I get you for a quick interview? And he was like, yeah, and it was like 10 seconds, and like so awesome. And like it was to interview him like really quick. I'm trying to think who else. I interviewed Pat McAfee that same day, and that was pretty awesome. I remember like that day I got like the amount of interviews, but like from with big people, and I was like, oh my gosh. Um, oh, wait, I'm blanking. What? I'm so stupid all the time. AJ Mendez. My gosh, how could I forget about that one? I wow, that one, my yeah, by far my favorite interview. Yeah, so I interviewed her at the return of WoW when she also returned to the world of professional wrestling, which about that like few months in advance, and I was like, I kind of knew I was gonna interview her, but like still there was no way of me mentally preparing, like being in the same room with AJ Mendez. But yeah, I interviewed her. I sobbed during the interview, I sobbed after the interview, and I sobbed a few hours after the interview too. She was so wonderful, and like just the way she talked, like the way she answered questions with such grace. Oh my gosh. I was like, this woman's insane. Like she was so incredible. Like I was just so blown away by her. But yeah, definitely that's my favorite one. No offense to Hall, but no, that was like my favorite one. I loved interviewing her. But honestly, like all my interviews, like the Scott Hall, Pat McAfee, and AJ, like all of them, like they all have like a special place in my heart because like there's like they have their own little stories to them, or like I'll never forget like when I got that interview and like the feeling of like being able to like complete it. Like all my interviews have a special place in my heart.
If the hot tag ever made a return, like, do you have any dream guests? Maybe.
Oh, well, the hot tag isn't around anymore, so I don't really think about dream guests. I know like everybody was like, you gotta interview Bayley one day, and that almost happened actually, and I was like, oh, trying to think. Not there's nobody specific, honestly. Like when I like any interview I would get, and this is gonna sound so cliche, but like honestly, any was like kind of a dream interview because like I know what it's like. Now I know like the life of a pro wrestler, how busy we are, like all of that. And so like when people would take like time out of their days, like especially in their off days, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like such an honor. But yeah, no, I don't like now I don't have any dream ones because like, I'm gonna be honest, I've kind of moved on from the hot tag. Um, no, but yeah, I just yeah, anybody who was like would come on my show, I'd be like, oh my gosh, you're the best.
I can relate. I've just anybody. I don't want to say I mark out for all of them, but there's like once we get into conversation, it's I fan out immediately. As soon as something clicks, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the greatest thing ever. Um, so I can relate. What what was it like for you to be one of the youngest, maybe podcasters, interviewers on the wrestling scene? Like, was that ever scary for you, or how was you feeling?
Like other like journalists I was in the room with, they would write articles about me. So it was just like it was just kind of funny to be like working alongside them. Um, but sometimes I actually wasn't the youngest because I was always with AJ Awesome, who he's way younger than me. So it was cool to see like young people in the media room. But yeah, many of them, so like Sean Ross Sapp, I adore him. Denise Salcedo, I really admire her work. Trying to think, John Alba, he was always wonderful to work with. I'm trying to think who else. Um, no, but yeah, no, like all of them were like absolutely incredible. And just, I know how hard they work. And I know, especially like the media industry is not easy. They're flying themselves to like the media stuff. So, I applaud them for being able to do that stuff. But yeah, no, they were all like incredible to work with. But yeah, it was always fun to be the youngest in there.
Okay. Do you ever like to think back and have a favorite maybe event you've attended as a fan?
Okay, yeah, just so as a fan, okay, I would say one that was really cool, Lucian. I was so honored to be able to go to that. And it was cool because where it was held, my dad grew up going to wrestling shows there because my parents are from New York. Um, he would go to wrestling shows there, so it was like really awesome, like going there with him and my mom and like getting to like witness literal history happen. So yeah, I would say that's probably up there with one of my favorites.
Okay. Um, going back to media scrums, you was at several of them, but you was at All Out when CM Punk kind of let the
Mhm.
world know how he felt. What was the vibe like in the room, and what was that scrum like for you?
Like one of the coolest experiences I've ever been a part of. Um, I think for me, I really admired Punk, and I still do. And for him to say that, I was impressed with the way he handled it. It, it was funny because, he said what he said to, specific people in the media room. And then I went to go ask my question. He was like, Izzy, I'm so sorry you had to hear all that. And I was like, oh my gosh, let it out. He was like, yeah, but I like you though. And wow, that moment I'll never forget because I grew up loving CM Punk and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, what the heck? I was like, what is my life? Um, and I actually just had the great honor to be able to train with him in December at the foundation. And so I actually story and I was like, listen, I was like, I just really appreciate you always and literally every time he was at the press conferences for AEW, he would always treat me with like the utmost respect. And I was just like it made me feel like I belonged in that room because sometimes it's a little, difficult being the youngest, but he always made me feel like I belonged there and that's something I'll forever be grateful. But yeah, no, I was like, I said to him when I saw him at training, I was like, thank you so much. I was like, you have no idea like what that did to me. And I was like, I really appreciate that. Um, but yeah, no, and that was funny because it was actually my last AEW media scrum because that was like around the time I was like, okay, I got to start pulling away from the media, start getting ready for my professional wrestling debut. Um, but yeah, no, it was cool to be a part of that. Honestly, any AEW media scrum, it's an honor to be a part of.
Okay. When did you officially start training to become a pro wrestler?
Yeah, so I honestly I've had a weird journey because I actually started to train when I was like 10.
Okay.
And then I actually had like my first official match when I was 10 years old. Fine, it helped me out, but I would do like seminars like here and there during that time period. And then I started to train in 2021. I would go back and forth between training out of state and then in state. And then this is when I started to like heavily train the summer of my debut. And then yeah, just ever since then. So it's been a weird journey, but I like to say I'm a little unicorn in wrestling because a lot of people don't have my story, so it's fine.
What made you decide to train with the hybrid school of wrestling?
Yeah, so a good friend of mine, Tessa Blanchard, she was training there at the time. That she asked me, and she was like, "Hey, I'm at this school. Would you want to come down and check it out in San Antonio?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." And so I went there, and so I would go back and forth. And then I was gonna move. I moved there last year, but right before I moved, Ace Steel opened up his school here in Orlando, and I was like, oh, perfect timing. And so I started to go there. the aces right before I moved because I had a lot of like big matches coming up. So like I knew I was becoming Mission Pro Wrestling champion. So like I had to prepare for that. But yeah, no, he opened up his school and then I actually moved back to Florida. And so right now I've been going to the foundation run by Steel. And then also Fighting Spirit, which is ran by Pete Dunne and the Grizzled Young Veterans. And oh my gosh, I love going to these schools. I like truly, it feels so good to enjoy training. Like I'm just so lucky and grateful. And like every day I look forward to training. And that's like truly the best feeling. And I adore, first off, like I adore Ace. I really do. Like his knowledge is insane and like being able to like work with him and like giving me ideas, like I will always be grateful for him. And in Fighting Spirit, like again, like pool of knowledge, like I'm diving in, like absolutely incredible. And then like it's just such a good environment at these two schools and like, everybody at Foundation and like everybody at Fighting Spirit, like they mean so much to me and I'm just so lucky where I am and like I do not take any of this for granted because like I'm just so happy where I'm at. And I don't think like without these schools, like I think without these schools, like, well, I'm sorry. I don't think without these schools, like I wouldn't be able to like perform at like the level that I'm at. And especially like going into Mania week and then also, my 18th birthday and, me being eligible to sign somewhere. Like they've gotten me so prepared and they're continuing to do that. So I'm just so freaking lucky.
How were you feeling maybe before and after your debut match? Like what was the feeling going through your mind and body?
Man, vomit, pass out, like all of it. Like you, like before the match, I was like, actually, I feel like I was on my deathbed. Like, I was so freaking nervous, and I'll never, like, truly, the car ride there, because I was staying in Texas at the time. The car ride there, man, every light was green. There's no traffic. It was like the universe was telling me like this is happening. And so my comfort artist is Taylor Swift. So my parents were playing that in the car. And so there's this one song that's like really inspired my character. It's called You're on Your Own Kid. And so it started to play as we were pulling up to the venue. And I was like, what is happening? And I literally sat in the car listening to that song, sobbing. It was it was an ugly cry day, and that was okay because honestly, my debut was absolutely incredible, and I adored it. And then afterwards, after it was funny. But yeah, I was just like so overwhelmed with emotions, and it's just like a day I'll never forget. And it was perfectly imperfect for me. And I think that really describes my career the best. It was just amazing. And so getting to, debut on a Mission Pro Wrestling stage, forever will be grateful to Thunder Rosa and the entire Mission Pro team. But yeah, no, it was so awesome. I always say the best 5 minutes of my life ever is my debut entrance and to the first 5 minutes of the Taylor Swift concert when I went to the April before my debut. So just to tell you, it was a really awesome day for me. Absolutely loved my debut.
That's incredible. Something fun I try to do here on the podcast is, I've learned as podcasters, um, a lot of us try to stay away from
Yes.
like be acting like a fan, even though we're all fans. So to be different, I decided I'd go through and pick five opponents of yours
Hmm.
that interested me
Yeah.
the most and ask you about them. So just if you could give me a short um, how that match felt, what it was like to
Okay.
work with that person,
Go
something like
ahead.
that. Uh, I'm gonna start with Maya World.
Okay. Yeah. She was, oh, I love her. She's amazing. She's one heck of a talent. I don't know how she's not signed already. Um, and it was my second match at Mission and she was absolutely incredible. But yeah, I adore her. She's awesome.
What about Tiffany Nieves?
Oh, Miss Tiffany. Tiffany. She always resorts to cheap tactics, and I'm tired of it because she's actually a really good competitor. I just, for once, want her not to go and grab her tiara to distract the ref. Just one time. Just one time. No, but I adore Tiffany. She honestly, I've wrestled her a lot. I want to say 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. And every time it's been such a joy just to work with her. I would do it over and over again if I could. But yeah, she's amazing.
What about Missa Kate?
Oh, I love Missa. Even though we publicly hate each other, I love Missa. I've she was actually my opponent for my first win at Mission Pro, so getting to share that with her, and just everything else in between. Like I got to train with her in Texas, and like we spent like a few hours together, and like it's so awesome to be able to learn from her, and she's such an incredible talent too. Like absolutely love her.
She's somebody I've been fortunate enough to have on the podcast and watch her quite a bit in the Chicago area. She is Chicago's sweetheart. So it's like it was really cool to see that you've got to wrestle her. It was really that one stuck out to me.
Hmm.
Um, up next, you've mentioned her a couple times, Miss Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, she's great. Oh, I don't even know where to begin. Like, do I have to answer this? Because like it's Thunder Rosa. Like wow, I will never forget the day I found out I was going to be facing Thunder, and it was actually quite funny because she called me. I was out to dinner with my parents, and she called me, and I was like, "Hey, let me go run outside real quick, take this fall." And so this was the week before the last mission show. We were just like reflecting on it. And so I said to her, because originally we were supposed to have a match or like the last show of the year for mission, that was going to be our match together. And that match was going to be in December. So I said to her, I was like, listen, I know, we're not going to make it to December, but I was like, I'm sure somebody's going to want to book us together. And she was like, that match is actually going to happen this week. And I was like, come again? I was like, girl, I was like, you should have told me like months in advance so I can prepare. And so, yeah, she told me, and honestly, it's my favorite match I've had. It was so emotional and it was so incredible, and I truly feel like we put everything into that match, and just her way of highlighting me, I will like never forget how she took care of me inside the ring, and then the moment afterwards, when she gave that speech, and then I'll never forget those words she said to me. She was like, "We were always looking for somebody like me," and like that will forever connect with me. So yeah, that was oh, I love that match, and I adore her. And hopefully one day we'll get to do it again. Maybe in AEW, but hey, you never know. But I really do love her. Like she's probably one of the most like special people I've been able to meet through professional wrestling. So getting to share that with her, I'll never forget it.
That's incredible. Up next, I got Miss Leva Bates.
Oh, me and Leva, we have history. She's like an OG BFF because I actually teamed up with her when I was 10 in my first match. And then we did have a triple threat together last year. I adore Leva. She's amazing, truly one of the sweetest people ever. Her knowledge on wrestling is absolutely incredible, and she's like honestly one of the funniest people I've met. So I adore her. She's awesome.
Okay. Um, Two more questions. This one, you've mentioned that you've been announced for WrestleCon. What's it like for you to be able to now go to one of these conventions, not as a fan or a podcaster, but as a wrestler?
Oh, it means the world to me. I'll never forget like my first WrestleCon that I was signing at. I was just going as Izzy, like kind of like the hot tag. And then last year was like my first WrestleCon as Izzy Moreno. And that's like it means so much to me because, the amount of fans I get coming up to me and like how much they share their excitement that they get to meet me and like how they've been following my journey. Like it means so much to me. And also what's really cool is like when I'm walking around WrestleCon and I see like a lot of people wearing an Izzy Moreno friendship bracelet, that is like the coolest feeling ever. But yeah, no, it means so much to me. Like I love meeting my fans. I know so many of them online, so getting to meet them in person means so much to me. I absolutely adore it. And truly, like my favorite part about my job, and I don't want to say, I hate saying the term job, but literally, like my favorite part about all of this is getting to meet my fans, like whether it's post-match at a convention, wherever, like it's so awesome. And so that's like honestly, like the most exciting parts of being a wrestler for me is getting to meet the fans, especially WrestleCon, where it's just like all the fans in one room and like, some of like it's just so awesome for me. But yeah.
That's incredible. I've actually never been to a wrestling convention before. I'm going to go. My first one will be at the Squared Circle Expo next month. So I'm excited. I haven't got to experience that yet. My last question, we're about a quarter of the way through 2025. Um, some of your goals for the end of this year. Are you looking to try to get signed after you become 18, or what are some of the other goals maybe?
I'm gonna be honest, that's the only goal, right? Since like the moment I like decided to become a professional wrestler, that was kind of like I want to get signed like by 18. I really just want to do that so bad. Um, but yeah, like besides goals, that's like the only one right now. And it's what's so beautiful about it all is that there's so many options for me, and that's kind of the exciting and fun part about it all. Like, yeah, like okay, it's like I could get a real job, but I'm like, man, this is fun. Like, I love like, seeing what my fans think. I love teasing my fans a little bit, because I know more than what they know. But hey, like I know everybody wants to see me in NXT because that would be so full circle. And then especially with WWE Evolve, that wouldn't be a bad landing spot. Just saying. And then TNA, I actually got to visit TNA recently, and that was really awesome. And then obviously AEW, I have some unfinished business there with Miss Mercedes and even Thunder Rosa. But truly, anybody, anywhere that wants to be my BFF, I want to be your BFF. But yeah, no, I'm so lucky and blessed to be in this position to be talking about this. I have a great support system from my parents and then my management team. They're absolutely incredible, and I trust them to get to be able to talk about this stuff because for years I was always like, oh yeah, when I turn 18, when I turn 18. Now it's like, okay, I turn 18 this May and like stuff could happen and there's a really high chance. I can't say anything, but there's, stuff is gonna happen. And so I'm so excited to share this with the fans because this wouldn't be possible without them. And I know for years they've talked about this, whether it's NXT, whether it's TNA, AEW, getting ID'd, the whole shebang. Um, I'm just so excited and I'm very lucky and honored to be able to talk about this stuff quickly too, because I had to kind of keep quiet about it for a little bit, but I just we'll see what happens.
Definitely. Izzy, thank you so much for joining us here for the podcast. I know we did a little bit at the beginning, but just in case the fans
Thank you
missed
for
it,
having me.
of course. Um, just in case they missed it at the beginning, you want to shout out your social medias just so they can cover those one more time?
I got you. Okay, so you can get me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter across the board. It's Izzy Mania, ITSIZZYMANIA. But seriously, thank you so much for having me. This was such a joy to do this. And I can't wait to hopefully do another one soon.
Definitely. I will just leave it at maybe see you next time then.